It is Tom Ross versus Brad Carpenter. Tom, not too much fancy going on in this list, does have a copy of Stitcher's Graft, but he'll start the game on a Dragon Hunter.
And Stitcher's Graft is something I've seen in the field. The equipment is just really good at allowing the human's deck to just attack without really caring much about what's on the other side of the table. It's just another way to do that. Sort of like an extra copy of Always Watching. Not quite as powerful, but a good supplement.
Oath of Nissa for Brad Carpenter finds him a land as we're back to Tom. On the play, he will swing this Dragon Hunter, and it is joined by two more 2/1s. It's a second Dragon Hunter and an Expedition Envoy. You know, triple Savannah lines, that's a start for the ages here.
Yeah, you said Tom's deck's not fancy, but it sure is fast.
Sylvan Advocate's going to try to do some blocking from Brad Carpenter. We'll see if Tom has an answer at the ready, though. And Always Watching or a Declaration in Stone would both be great here. Looks like he has Thraben Inspector, and he'll Griff's Boon, a Dragon Hunter. And the Hunter will fly over for 3.
Even the Griff's Boon is enough to be in a solid position here.
Well, there's only one card remains in Tom's hand. All 5 of the spells he's played so far have cost 1 mana.
He does have that clue to gas back up a little bit here. Finding an Always Watching would break this wide open in his favor.
Nissa Vastwood Seer from Carpenter finds him another forest.
Still in a position where a Declaration in Stone would be excellent. That 2/2 Nissa doesn't matter nearly as much to Tom.
Carpenter at 15, the 2/3 blocker, doing so much work. Time you're looking right. Declaration Stone, Always Watching would be huge.
And there are 2 Griff's Boons in Tom's deck. A second copy would help him fly over for even more damage on a turn.
Go back over to Tom Ross. He cracks his clue to draw a card. And there it is, Declaration in Stone on the Sylvan Advocate. And here come the creatures. A 3/1 flyer for Dragon Hunter, a pair of 2/1s. Brad will trade away the Vastwood Seer with an Expedition Envoy. Now it's interesting, you see him leaving back the Dragon Hunter.
The Inspector, rather, hangs back because it would just get eaten by the Nissa. And Brad is at just enough life where the attack with that block is less than half of his life total. So with a follow-up here, that block is a lot better than just trading with the 2/1.
Brad Carpenter refuels. It's a 1/1 Hangerback Walker and a Sylvan Advocate. He has been put down to 10 and make that 7 from Tom Ross. But Tom, no more pressure, plays his 5th Plains. Last card in hand is a 6th Plains. Brad can turn the corner. It will work here. And you see Thalia's Lancers from Brad Carpenter.
And Brad's happy to draw 6 or more lands. Tom definitely is not wanting to draw this many planes in a given game.
Carpenter starting to turn the corner here as you see Avacyn as the reveal for Thalia's Lancers. Tom is so close right now. But Avacyn will be on blocking duty in next turn. You see Carpenter down to 4.
And Tom's list doesn't have an instant speed way to deal with the Avacyn, so he just has to attack into it and get eaten. You can hang back and not attack, though of course the longer he's up to that, the more Brad's going to turn this game around.
Yeah, plays another Dragon Hunter. Sometimes you'll see them play something like Stasis Snare that could flash in and take care of the Avacyn.
Right, 1 or 2 copies of that is not terribly uncommon, though Tom is without that here. He has 2 copies in his sideboard, but in game 1, the Avacyn's going to be a serious problem, in particular on this board where Brad already has firm control of the ground.
Yeah, Brad plays a land and passes. Tom will draw. He's got Carpenter down to 4, but those last 4 points may be the toughest of the game.
As they often are.
Another Expedition Envoy for Tom. He'll pass. Now, right now, Tom Ross does have 5 creatures in play to Carpenter's 4. So if he can get enough more than Carpenter, you think then that maybe he can use that?
Well, yeah, he could punch
push
through
the
it
last
that way.
through.
What he has to worry about, if Carpenter, say, has another Hangerback Walker he can just cast into this own Avacyn, that Avacyn flipping would just plague win Tom here, and then we don't even have a game anymore.
Well, here's something he has to watch out for. Carpenter's going to go on the offensive himself. The 4-5 Advocate, the 4-4 Avacyn, and the Thalia's Lancers will all attack. This is 11 damage. Tom at 16.
And Tom's blocks, if he made any, would look like chump blocks. And even if he were to trade with these creatures, that would just cause the Avacyn to flip. So you could go ahead and try to triple block the Advocate or something like that. But if he kills the Advocate, then the Avacyn would just kill his other creatures.
Actually, we'll make that 12 damage from the Lancers. Tom now joins Carpenter at 4.
And for Carpenter, that last 4 points will be a lot easier to deal.
Hangerback Walker will go. He's thinking about pumping it up, then changes his mind. He's going to crack his clue token. And it looks like one of his main deck copies of Tragic Arrogance is in his hand. And Brad, it is. And Carpenter's going to go ahead and cast that. He chooses to keep his Hangerback Walker and his Avacyn, leaving Tom Ross with just Thraben Inspector.
And this will cause the Avacyn to trigger. It'll flip on Tom's turn. That'll kill the Hangerback Walker. And then Brad will have 3 lethal attackers on his following turn.
Hangerback's popped, Tom's at 1, he draws a card, and we're on to game 2. Brad Carpenter takes the first game, staves off the swarm of humans until he can counterattack for the win.
Yeah, and Tom was on the play there. He had the 1-drop, double 1-drop. Big piece he was missing was the always watching. Had he had that, he wouldn't have had to worry as much about the Sylvan Advocate, wouldn't have had the Declaration in Stone, the first copy necessarily, and then just fall behind on the second copy.
Well, we're going to go look at the sideboards, and we'll start over on Tom Ross's side. This is a match he needs to win if he wants to make it into the top 8. You see he's got an extra plains, a Stitcher's Graft, a Griff's Boon, a Silk Wrap, 2 Stasis Snare, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, 2 Repel the Abominable, 2 Hanvir Militia Captain, a Tandem Tactics, and 2 Hallowed Moonlight.
The Stasis Snare seems pretty solid here, and that's going to deal with, say, the Avacyn played during his combat step. You can use it to clean up something like a Gisela out of Carpenter. And then the Hanweir Militia Captains I like a good amount. This matchup looks to be a lot about going wide, and that enables you to make a lot of tokens, make your board go wide without having to commit all the creatures in your hand into a potential Avacyn from Carpenter, which could just Plague Wind you. And also, so you don't have to play all your cards into a Tragic Arrogance, same thing as the Avacyn there.
You see the number 2 by Tom Ross's name. He is number 2 on the leaderboard and has locked his spot in the Players' Championship this weekend. But he's looking at so much more. Tom, a 2-time Invitational champion. Remember, these players this weekend playing for that championship, that spot in the Invitational title, the spot in the Players' Championship. They're playing for a whole lot of money. And on top of that, they're just playing for the likeness on their card. So the Season 1 winner, Max McVitie, you see here on the Clue token. He was our Season 1 champion with Mono White Humans, actually, the same deck that Tom Ross is playing right now.
Yep.
Those, of course, you can get them. They were available at entrance to all of our events here in Season 2. Now, if you didn't make it out to anything here in Season 2, they are still shipping with orders from StarCityGames.com. So this is one of your last chances to get one of these amazing Clue tokens. Remember, this weekend, we will crown a new Invitational champion, and very shortly after that, we'll switch over to the new token. So for Max and the Clue, you need to, time is running out.
Yeah, and for Tom Ross, he's already the Vampire token. He's already our Infect counter. His back's against the wall, but he sure wouldn't mind having a 3rd token.
For Brad Carpenter, this has been one of his breakout seasons. You see on Team Next Ridge Nexus, the 24-year-old from St. Petersburg, Florida, has 3 open top 8s, but is still looking for that first win. A win here in Game 2 would give him his first Invitational top 8, and perhaps do so much more. It would give him a whole host of points. Now, he's out of the Season 2 race, but even if he top 8s this Invitational, that will propel him toward perhaps the season end race.
Yeah, definitely. He's been a solid performer. I wouldn't be surprised to see him both make the top 8 of the Invitational this weekend and to put up a couple more top 8s in Season 3 this year.
Players getting ready for Game 2. We're going to look at Brad Carpenter's sideboard. Game 1, I actually really like what went on there. Sylvan Advocate seemed great.
Yes.
Tragic Arrogance, if he can survive to it, is a game winner.
Right. So he has these haymakers that cost 4 or 5 plus mana. What he wants everything else to his deck to be is just lean, able to interact. Sylvan Advocate is worth more than the average card because it can profitably block all the 2/1 creatures on a Tom's deck until they get larger or pick up a Griff's Boon. But in the meantime, he'll want to use some removal spells, some stuff like the Declaration and Stones in his sideboard. You can even bring in Den Protector to cast on 2 as something that can trade with the creature in combat.
Now he has these big life gain 6-drops, Dragonlord Dromoka and Linvala the Preserver. I'm interested to see what your thoughts on what he'll do with them. I know 6 mana is just a ton, but at the same time, these are cards that gain him lots of life. Maybe could stabilize the board for him.
Yeah, so these cards are pretty great haymakers. One thing, his deck, he's playing the Brisella Meld. So the Bruna is a little harder to get to than these 6-drops, so I like turning that into something cheaper on the curve. Stuff like his Sigarda Heron's Grace in the main deck. He really wants to turn these into more efficient cards. He also has some Nissas on the draw, which are not the most exciting, so he can convert those into these haymakers as well. Primarily, he wants to lower his curve, but also just having the best impact expensive spell on the turn that you cast it is something that he's going to be looking to optimize.
All right, well, we're underway with game 2. Tom Ross, once again on the play, starts out with Expedition Envoy, the modern-day Savannah Lions.
One of several modern-day Savannah Lions.
I think I like this one because its text box is empty. I guess its ability, and this was relevant in Limited, is that it's an ally.
It's relevant in Modern.
Well, how about also it's a human, as Thalia's Lieutenant will make it into a 3/2.
Yeah, it's got a great text box.
It's all in the type line. For Carpenter, a 2nd Fortified Village, he'll play Hangerback Walker on 1. You see some of those sideboard cards in Ross's hand. He's got a Stasis Snare at the ready. Drew always watching for the turn. Don't know if he has land number 3, though. But who needs land number 3 when you just have more creatures? He'll play Town Gossipmonger, Anointer of Champions, and an attack for 6.
This is a very solid start for Tom here. Picking up the 3rd land and having Always Watching would be massive. Also just Stasis Snaring away the Hangerback Walker so it doesn't cause a lot of blocks.
A land and a pass for Carpenter. And there's land 3 for Tom. You're expecting a Stasis Snare maybe out of Carpenter?
He's got a little bit of a dilemma here on Tom's side. Carpenter is representing Activate Hangerback Walker and cast Dromoka's Command, which looks pretty good on this board. He can use the Hangerback Walker to fight with the Thalia's Lieutenant and make a bunch of Thopters.
Right. So he's got a debate between Always Watching and Stasis Snare.
If Tom, just goes to combat and attacks, you can just attack with the Lieutenant, and then the Hangerback Walker would pump itself. After blocking, you can also attack with the Expedition Envoy, because it'll at least trade.
That looks like the play. Land 3, then a swing with just the 2 creatures. We'll see how Carpenter responds.
And I like Tom showing respect for the Dromoka's Command. It's unlikely that Brad's keeping a hand that's just Hangerback Walker until turn 4.
Yeah, he'll block with Hangerback. It will pump. And then he's going to go for Dromoka's Command. And what patience here on Tom's side. He then Stasis Snares the Walker. None of this is going to work. And this is just perfect for Tom. At 3 damage in, he gets Brad's whole turn and his cards.
Yep, and Tom has the option here between using the Anointer of Champions to punch in for an extra point of damage, or just to flip the Town Gossipmonger. Given that he has Always Watching in hand, I kind of like flipping the Gossipmonger. That thing gets really scary, though he's electing to take the point of damage.
No, I think you had it right, though. He does the extra damage here to put Carpenter to 7. Because next turn, if he plays Always Watching, he can do everything.
Right, he gets Vigilance, he can attack, and then transform it during combat.
Right. Oath of Nissa from Carpenter. Sylvan Advocate is in the top 3. That's about as good as he's going to do, but at 7 life, his best may not be enough.
Yeah, Tom's attacking for a lot next turn.
Advocate pass for Tom Ross. Believe we're going to go to a 3rd game. Yeah, Always Watching, swing. 3 creatures are getting through. That's going to be lethal.
Yeah, the Lieutenant's a 4. Everything else is at least 2. One of those creatures is going to punch through for 3 or more damage. Multiple creatures even.
Doesn't even need to flip the Gossipmonger. Tom wins the game there. Turn 5, and we are on to the 3rd game between the 2.
This will be the first game where Brad's on the play. So that's got to be scary for Tom.
So that sort of game there, the game felt like it was decided there was a turn here where Brad had a Hangerback Walker and 3 mana. He went to pump Hangerback Walker, then went to Dromoka's command, and lost the game to a Stasis Snare. Does Carpenter have any other options there?
He could have committed those actions on his own turn to respect the Stasis Snare. Stasis Snare exactly is what would blows him out. On the previous turn, Tom missed a land drop, so Stasis Snare not necessarily on the radar, though clearly the way the game had played out, doing it on his turn would have worked a lot better.
So he on his own turn pumps Walker, makes it fight the Lieutenant, they trade,
Yep.
and pops, and Carpenter gets 3 Thopters.
Right.
Still
And-
tough to win from there.
Yeah, exactly. And given the fact that Tom had missed the land drop and he would have to have Stasis Snare exactly, I think the way that he played it was fine, though looking back, he of course would wish that he had made the other play.
Yeah, if Tom doesn't have the Stasis Snare, then Carpenter's line has the biggest reward to it.
Right.
Players here are going to get ready for a third and deciding game for Brad Carpenter. A win here will put him into the top 8 here of the Invitational. For Tom Ross, he at least needs a win. The standings are very close. He entered this round in 7th place. A loss would be a dangerous thing indeed. They're going to shuffle up for the game, and we're going to take a second to tell you about the Star City Games Regionals Championships coming up here in Season 3. So this is October 15th during Standards. This will be after Kaladesh has come out. We'll be having these all over the country, and we want to show you the exclusive Wings of Glass playmat here. This and its token are going to be given out to the first 200 players at each location to register. So you see this Robin Alphard token. It is the human. These prizes will be given out, but you are going to want to register. So to find out when you can make it, this is coming up in just under 2 months. You see here, it's part of the SCG Tour. So what that means is we'll be giving away $1,200 to the winner of each regional, along with a lot of SCG points. And for the top 8 competitors of each event, you can win qualification to any of the next 3 Star City Invitationals. So all of this and more, you can find out. Locations are now announced. As we see here across the map, we have 15 different locations in the US. So find the one closest to you at starcitygames.com/regionals.
Regionals is always a great tournament. I don't know what my October schedule looks like. I assume that I'll be playing in Minneapolis. I might even bring a playable deck this time.
How are you feeling about blue-red after this weekend? I know that that's a deck that you love playing.
I was walking the floor and I saw a lot of Orbs of Warding and Peace of Minds. And I don't think you can beat a single copy of either of those cards.
Peace of Mind is really good against Fevered Visions, I would think.
Yeah. You actually just gain 1 more life than the damage you could theoretically be dealt. You can discard below that point, though.
Well, I'd have to spend white mana.
That is the drawback.
Right. It means I'd have to be playing white.
Right.
White never does anything broken.
White it's only obviously the best color in Standard, which is not enough to convince everybody to play it.
I'm just trying to think of historically the number of combo decks that play white, and it's not very many. They exist.
Scepter Chant.
That doesn't count.
I suppose you're not going to count putting Silence in the ad nauseum decks either.
All right, no, Silence is like one of White's most exciting cards.
That's exactly what Orim's Chant is.
Right, but you didn't cast it off the Scepter. You would just like not play white mana, and then you just say like, oh, I'm putting into play.
You cast Chant sometimes.
Sometimes you'd pay the kicker.
Chant is like Time Walk. Of course you would just cast Chant.
I'm just saying, of all the colors, white contributes the least to the most fun things.
I can agree with that, though I was going to see how many white combo decks I could rattle off.
Both players have taken 1 mulligan here.
Enduring Ideal?
Like, there are some, okay, you could say, hey, Jeskai Twin, right? But part of me is going to say, that's really a control deck that's winning with combo cards. You get like a C for suggesting stuff like that.
So
right?
if you're just going to boo-hoo on every answer to the question, of course there's not going to be any good
just like
answers.
a good I'm going to play these cards that kill you.
If you want an answer to your question that doesn't have technicalities, ask a better question.
When's the last time a white spell drew you 7 cards? Tom Ross starts out on Expedition Envoy. First play from Carpenter is Sylvan Advocate. Tom's second play here is going to be 2 more 1-drops. He's got Thraben Inspector and the Stitcher's Graft.
Ooh.
Carpenter was on a 5-card hand this game. Now, Stitcher's Graft is really interesting. I know with Always Watching, this card's just fantastic.
Yes. It also combines very well with the Flip Gideon, because you can just untap the creature after it attacks.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
But normally, equipped creature gets +3/+3 and does not untap if it attacks.
Tom will play Knight of the White Orchid, gets an extra land here on his 3rd turn. Now, I got a question for you. With Tom being on the draw, getting a free card off Knight of the White Orchid, getting a clue off Thraben Inspector, can he take a control route here? You see Griff's Boon on Expedition Envoy will deal 3.
He can block. That's the extent of the control that Tom's deck really plays. He does have sideboard Gideon, so he can kind of get in that range, but calling it control is rather generous.
Yeah, he's +3 cards now on Carpenter.
Right, though a lot of his cards are just not worth very much relative to what Brad's cards are worth. Also fairly confident that Brad has a Tragic Arrogance in hand.
That's worth a lot of cards.
And the more of these cards that Tom puts on the table,
Yeah.
the less he's able to leverage that advantage.
Land and go from Carpenter. He plays his 4th land, and this will be interesting. Tom did not play a land last turn. He got a land off Knight of the White Orchid, but that was it. And now it looks like we're going to see why. I think he's got another Knight coming up.
Well, Knight is solid, though. In the face of Tragic Arrogance, it's a good chance that Tom should just spend this turn equipping Stitcher's Graft and attacking.
Ooh. Oh, this is not the unfair way to play Stitcher's Graft. This is the kind where your creature actually doesn't untap.
Right, and if you move the equipment, you have to sacrifice the creature, so it's a
Why
lot of tension there.
It's a graft. You know, you're not like giving him this hammer. You're just like fusing the hammer onto him. You can't take that off him anymore. That's
Yeah, that gets real messy.
how the Stitchers of Innistrad work.
That's how the Stitchers of everywhere work. The Stitchers of Mirrodin with Grafted War Gear, which this card is kind of a throwback to.
Are they stitching Grafted War Gear into people?
I don't know if they're grafting it.
Right. Knight of the White Orchid is eventually the decision for Tom, so he gets that land off it. You see he does have a Plains in his hand. He's just opting not to play it so that he can cash in these Knights. Expedition Envoy looks to still be the only attacker. He'll swing and put Brad to 14. And I like that quick backup there. Do you notice how Tom played the land before attacking?
Right, yeah. He thought about playing the land, put it almost on the table, picked it up, and then played it.
It's almost a throwback to last game, right? He wants Brad to be concerned about...
He wants Stasis Snare on the brain.
Yeah. Tom Ross things right there. He's one of the best at those kinds of plays.
Absolutely.
Brad does not draw the 5th land for Tragic Arrogance, but he draws Oath of Nissa, and that finds him the 5th land. It's a Plains. 2 cards in Carpenter's hand. One of them we know is the Sweeper. He's counting on it to win the game for him. The other one looks to be Declaration in Stone. And I guess the question is whether or not Brad feels like he has to fire that off right now, or if he can go for full value, blow up everything with Arrogance, and then Declaration.
Yeah, surveying the board, see how much damage he would take on this turn. He is still at 14.
Because if he Arrogances both Knights here, then Tom has a great board for rebuilding from the Sweeper, doesn't he? It's been a Tragic Arrogance, the Expedition Envoy.
Declaration in Stone, rather.
Right, Declaration in Stone. So it's exiled. Tom Ross gets a clue. He'll draw a card. Back to Tom Ross. Has not found time to graft that equipment onto any of his creatures just yet.
Yeah, and without the Always Watching, with Brad having so much life, there is a significant cost to putting that on.
Tom Ross draws a 6th land. His hand is a Stasis Snare, a Plains, and one other. He has a Griff's Boon in the graveyard as well, getting up to the mana where that's going to come into play.
You can start just using his creatures as lava axes at that point. Just put on the boon, put on the graft, attack for 4 plus the creature's base power. 3 shots of that would kill Carpenter.
Always Watching this hand, and he's going to put it down. So here's that combo of Always Watching and Stitcher's Graft. Creatures get Vigilance. Graft equips to Thraben Inspector. Yeah, here comes the team. A pair of 3/3 first strikers. And that's Stitcher's Graft.
So here's an unfortunate thing for Tom. Tom now controls 2 artifacts because he has an uncracked clue and the Stitcher's Graft.
The clue, right, the clue counts.
Now, when Stitcher's Graft becomes unattached from a creature, the creature has to be sacrificed.
Oh, wait, so if Carpenter chooses Thraben Inspector as the creature, the clue as the artifact, then the Graft will die, the Knights will die,
And then
the Thraben Inspector
will
dies?
die to the Graft trigger.
Oof.
So, assuming that Brad knows this, and I assume he does, he's a sharp guy, this is devastating for Tom.
See how Carpenter wants to play here. Ideally, I guess he knows he's going to cast a sweeper next turn, so that's going to influence his blocks.
Exactly. Thinks about what he wants to leave behind. The Sylvan Advocate is generally going to be something that's better to have at the end of all of this than a Thopter token.
Yeah, especially if he has a 6th land here. So he goes ahead and takes 6 off the Knights, blocks and pumps the Hangerback Walker, so he'll 3 Thopters are on the way. Tom's last card is a copy of Stasis Snare. Let's see what Carpenter does. He'll untap 3 Thopters and an Advocate. There's land 6, Advocate's a 4/5. The 2 Thopters will swing. Now it's interesting, normally you'd want to slow down in the Tragic Arrogance, but if Carpenter gives Tom Ross time to crack the clue, this isn't going to work, right?
Right. Yeah, you want to do this right now.
Tragic Arrogance from Carpenter. So Carpenter will keep his Sylvan Advocate, and the artifact he chooses a Thopter, and chooses his Oath of Nissa. And this is the big part for Tom Ross. The play we mentioned, he gets all of Tom's creatures because he picks Clue Token as an artifact.
It's brutal.
A swing for 5. Tom Ross is down to 15. We saw Tragic Arrogance take game 1, and it might do it again here in game 3.
Card is so good. It was far and away the best card in Origins Limited. It was only a matter of time before it started winning games in Standard, and right now it's known as being very good.
Tom, though, is going to try to recover. Draws for turn, draws off Clue. He looks like he has some more creatures. But he's going to need it. He lost his equipment. Plays Town Gossipmonger and Dragon Hunter. Remember, both those still being pumped by the Always Watching. Back to Carpenter. He's at 8, Tom Ross at 15. If Carpenter swings here, the Advocate actually will trade with both these creatures if it's double blocked.
Right, though the Gossipmonger flipping could theoretically just attack and trade into the Advocate
on its
by
own.
pumping as the Unsighted Rabble. Right, so that 2-for-1 will be totally fine.
So it's just Advocate. That knocks Tom Ross down to 11, and here's a big turn from him. Draws a Plains, so his hand is Plains, Stasis Snare. Carpenter has drawn 1 card since the Tragic Arrogance. Tom's hoping it isn't a good one. He'll bring back that Griff's Boon from so long ago. Plays actually the 7th land plays here, which is really great for Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Boon and Snare on the same turn.
It goes on to Town Gossipmonger. It's now a 3/2 flyer. Could flip to a 4/4 flyer. It'll attack. Carpenter will block with the Thopter. Tom will pass. So he's playing the Stasis Snare slowly here.
There's really no reason to commit it there in combat. He doesn't care about that chump block, and that Advocate wasn't necessarily getting in his way.
Carpenter attacks with the Sylvan Advocate. Now, if Tom could attempt to trade with it here. Doesn't look like he will.
Right, and the other thing, you wanted to hold on to that Stasis Snare if Tom attacked and Carpenter just cast an Avacyn. It would be nice to have it in that situation.
And for Carpenter, it's Gisela the Broken Blade. The 4/3 flying first strike lifelink.
This card's extremely powerful in this matchup when there's no Always Watching. Still quite good generally when he has it, but no match for Stasis Snare.
So Ross will snare it, flip his Incited Rabble, draw a card. With the land, Tom wins here, doesn't he? He attacks in the air. Pump, 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 pump. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's exactly 8. The top decked 8th planes wins the game exactly for Tom Ross. And there you have it. With mono white humans, he takes the match.